Thanks for joining us on Plus TV Africa. My name is Felicity Ezewike. The Publicity Secretary of the APC in Benue, Mr. Agbo Tekula, has resigned both his membership of the party and the position he occupied. In a letter of resignation dated Wednesday, July 18th, addressed to the state chairman of the party, Tekula claimed the APC-controlled federal government did not represent the interests and yearnings of the people of the state. He regretted the unprovoked killings of rural farmers by herdsmen and the displacement of farmlands and the plight of the internally displaced persons in the state. He added that some of the reckless comments by top political appointees of the federal government had exacerbated the killings. Members of the Social Democratic Party SDP in Osun on Wednesday elected Mr. Munuruddin Atanda as their candidate for the September 22nd governorship election. The party primary, which took place at the SDP Secretariat on Bonga Road, Osogbo, was held amid tight security. Although a former deputy governor in the state, Senator Iola Omishore, was also listed as aspirant on the ballot paper, he and his supporters did not participate in the exercise. Chief Ademola Ishola, the SDP chairman in the state, told party members after the exercise to disregard insinuation that another faction of the party exists in the state. The primary election was witnessed by officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission and the National Orientation Agency. The All Progressive Congress primary to elect its candidate for the forthcoming Osun governorship election has been postponed from Thursday, July 19th till Friday, July the 20th. The party announced the postponement in a statement issued by Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, its national publicity secretary, on Wednesday in Abuja. The statement added that a meeting between the primary election committee, chaired by Governor Abdulaziz Yeri of Zamfara State, and Osun APC stakeholders would hold in Osogbo, the state capital, on Thursday. You would recall that Mr. Adams Oshomole, the APC national chairman, on Monday, July 16, said the party would adopt the direct primary to pick its candidate for the Osun governorship election. The national leadership of the People's Democratic Party has said the Independent National Electoral Commission allegedly rigged the election in favor of the rival All Progressives Congress. The National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Kola Ologbodiyan, in a statement in Abuja, also accused the commission of pulling down the results of the election from its website. He said that apart from the huge discrepancies between the actual vote cast at the polling centers and the results released by INEC, there is evidence that INEC pulled down the original result, which was in favor of the PDP candidate, Professor Kolakbo Olushola, from its database to accommodate the alterations. Still on election matters, INEC says it may be incapable to stop voter buying during the 2019 general election. Its Director of Publicity and Voter Education, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi, said the Commission had taken several steps since the issue of voter buying drew national attention during Edo State governorship election in 2016. As the power to arrest such offenders lied with the security agencies, the director also justified the Commission's 242 billion naira proposal to conduct the election, stating that the amount was to ensure that logistics and relevant trainings for next year's election is well attended to. Now, autism is a medical condition usually ignored as a result of myths and beliefs surrounding it. Our correspondent, Amaka Okoye, was at a conference addressing issues related to autism and how to resolve it. She files in this report.
Recent statistics show that 1 in every 7 persons in the world have one form of neurological disorder or the other, meaning about 1 billion persons are autistic. And in Nigeria, more than 1 million children and teenagers are affected by this condition. It is made worse by the lack of awareness of what this is and how to care for those it affects. At this year's conference, I caught up with Dr. Akonde and asked her the most difficult question. How do we deal with children who have been diagnosed as autistic?
You have to be patient, you have to be observant, You have to be technical, finding what that child, and the child has to trust you before he can reveal his strength to you.
In most cases, people associate autism with spiritual or demonic attacks and end up not getting proper medical attention. As enlightened as many countries may be in Africa and some parts of Asia, this rare medical condition stigmatizes the children who suffer it and creates a subculture of denial, which in turn makes it worse. What level of awareness is being created and sensitization for those with autism?
If so much emphasis is put on taking care of children with autism, children with special needs, then there's a need to get the community to also be at the same pace.
Most of them at times, they are visual learners. We call them visual learners because it's what they see that they learn with.
They are more like every other child. It's just little difference. They don't understand things the way you do. You have to repeat for them to understand. You have to be patient with them and show them more of love.
People who have autism find it difficult to act in a way other people think is normal, e.g. they find it difficult to talk to people, look at people, and often do not like being touched by others. A person who has autism seems to be turned inwards. They may talk only to themselves, roll themselves backwards and forwards, and laugh at their own thoughts. The good news, however, is if diagnosed early and with proper medical care, people with autism can excel in life.
When they have autism, what we see are the challenges. We never look for the strength because there are so many challenges, we ignore the strength. So the mother is busy trying to fix what she feels is a challenge.
At the end of the autism conference here in Lagos, what we are all taking home with us is that, as we say in Africa, it takes a whole village to raise a child, whereas it takes one autistic child to raise the consciousness of the society on how to deal with autism. Reporting for Plus TV Africa, I am Amaka Okoye.
The demarcation of the Cameroon-Nigeria border and the pillar construction continued to face challenges due to insecurity in areas affected by the presence of Boko Haram, the UN has said. This is contained in a report after Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the activities of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel. Guterres also cited the unrest in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon as partly contributing to the challenges faced by the Cameroon-Nigeria Mist Commission. Against that backdrop, parties to the Mist Commission met in Lagos, Nigeria on March 19 and March 20th to finalize the implementation of reinforced security measures for field operations. The Social Democratic Front, Cameroon's main opposition party, has officially filed the candidacy of its flag bearer for presidential polls slated for October 7, 2018. Local media reports that a mammoth crowd accompanied 49-year-old Joshua Osi Nabangi yesterday as he submitted his papers at the Elections Cameroon regional office in Douala. Osi, the main challenger to long-serving Paul Biya, was accompanied by SDF founder and former flag bearer John Frundi. A number of candidates are also expected to enter the race before submission deadline. Speaking to the media after his submission, Osi stressed that even though the number of candidates in the October 7th race may be less than that of 2011, it was the reason why this election was significant in Cameroon's political history. Thousands of pages of U.S. intelligence documents on Nelson Mandela were made public on Wednesday, revealing that Washington continued to monitor the South African anti-apartheid hero as a potential communist menace even after he was released from prison. A group that sued to obtain the papers has said. The Washington-based group, Property of the People, released the papers to mark the 100th anniversary of Mandela's birth. The late Mandela was regarded with suspicion by Washington during the Cold War and remained on the U.S. terrorism watch list until 2008. Property of the People said its trove included documents from the major U.S. intelligence agencies, the FBI, CIA, DIA, and NSA, most of which have never been seen by the public. The Mandela files can be found on its website propertyofthepeople.org. The first commercial flight from Ethiopia to Eritrea in 20 years landed safely in Asmara on Wednesday, greeted by dancers waving flags and flowers, cementing a stunning rapprochement that has ended a generation of hostility in a matter of days. As Ethiopian Airlines flight ET0312 made the momentous switch from Ethiopia to Eritrean airspace, Chief Executive Tawolde Gebra-Mariam took to the onboard intercom to remind the 315 passengers that they were part of history. Families separated from loved ones since the start of a brutal 1998 to 2000 border war sat next to dignitaries on the flight. Still under peace agreement between both countries, Ethiopia has appointed its first ambassador, Redwan Hussein, to Eritrea in 2 decades. When we return, we'll bring you news from the White House, the latest on the Brexit plans, and much more. Don't go away. UK police is reported to have identified the suspected perpetrators of the Novichok attack on a Russian ex-spy and his daughter in Salisbury in March. Press associations reports that several Russians involved in the attempted murder of Sergei and Yulia Skripal were identified through CCTV cross-checked with border entry data. 66-year-old Skripal and his daughter, who were discovered slumped on a bench in Salisbury on March 4th, have been discharged from the hospital and moved to secure locations. A British man, Zakaria Rahman, 20, who is from Birmingham, England, has been convicted at the Old Bailey courthouse in London on Wednesday for plotting to kill Prime Minister Theresa May in a terrorist attack at her official residence. According to the BBC, he will be sentenced at a later date. Rahman told undercover agents he planned a suicide bomb on Parliament, an attempt to kill Theresa May. The police also discovered that he was planning to an attack that would include bombing the security gates that protect May at her home and office at number 10 Downing Street. He planned to stab the British leader to death, prosecutors said at the time of his arrest. The White House has insisted it believes Russia still poses a threat to the U.S. amid confusion over comments made by President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump appeared to disagree with U.S. intelligence when he responded no to a question about whether Russia was still targeting American elections. Later, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said Mr. Trump was saying no to answering more questions. It comes amid a flurry of criticism over his recent comments about Russia. Israel's parliament has passed into law a controversial bill that defines the country as an exclusively Jewish state. The Jewish nation-state bill downgrades Arabic as an official language and says advancing Jewish settlement is a national interest. It also states that the whole and united Jerusalem, its capital. Israeli Arab MPs condemned the legislation, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised it as a defining moment. The bill, backed by the country's right-wing government, says Israel is the historic homeland of the Jewish people and they have an exclusive right to national self-determination in it. Business report after this, to stay with us. Importation of haulage vehicles which are 10 years old and above have date of manufacture have been banned by the federal government. The ban is expected to take effect from 1st of January 2020. This was one of the several resolutions at Stakeholders Forum organized by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Bas Mustafa. The decision was largely influenced by the recent inferno on the Otedola Bridge in Lagos. Also, mandatory certification of all haulage vehicles will now be carried out twice a year. The South African gold mine industry has shown that 80% of the industry is now unprofitable, with gold prices at about 520,000 rand per kilogram. This was revealed in a data from the Minerals Council in South Africa, leaving fewer than 20% of the gold mine industry making money at prevailing prices. According to the council's chief, Henk Langhoven, cash costs, sustaining capital and new investment costs are not being covered by over 80% of companies with today's gold prices. Still ahead on Plus TV News is a roundup on entertainment and sports. This stay with us.
In entertainment, British actress and former Emmerdale star Roxanne Pallett has been injured and hospitalized following a high-speed crash. The 36-year-old was racing with her radio show co-host Ben Fry in a stock car in York when the incident happened. She was approaching a bend when she lost control and crashed into a concrete wall. Firefighters allegedly spent just under 2 hours cutting the actress out of the car before airlifting her to Hull Royal Infirmary. Popular Nigerian pop star Two-Face is suing his former bandmate from Plantation Boys, Blackface, for 50 million naira over the writing of African Queen and Let Somebody Love You. The lawsuit cements their already long-standing feud, where Blackface claimed Two-Face stole his songs without giving him credit. The accusation led to a social media war before the legal counsel of Two-Face instructed Blackface to apologize for all of the defamatory statements directed at Two-Face or face legal action within 7 days of the receipt of the letter. Now, Two-Face and his manager have filed at the Ikeja High Court, and Blackface took to social media to share a photo of the writ and to inform all that his legal team has filed for his defense, after which he will release his album titled Rising Sun. Fictional superhero of Wakanda, Shuri, is to get her own comic book, which will be published by Nigerian-American writer Nnedi Okorafor. Reports say Marvel Comics will be releasing a spin-off book series focusing on the mind of the tech in Wakanda when her brother goes missing whilst trying to take the reins of the kingdom. The journey leads her to choose between the comfort of her lab or the people of Wakanda. The artist involved in the comic book is Marvel Comics' Leonardo Romero, and that's it on entertainment. The very best in sports right after this.
Thank you, Tokumbo. And in sports, former Chelsea and Italy striker Gianfranco Zola has returned to Stamford Bridge as assistant to new manager Maurizio Sarri. Zola, who resigned as Birmingham City manager in April 2017, has joined Chelsea's pre-season tour of Australia. Zola made 312 league and cup appearances for Chelsea, scoring 80 times. He has managed West Ham United, Watford and Italian side Cagliari. Alisson Becker is undergoing his medical with Liverpool this morning after agreeing personal terms ahead of his £66.6 million move from AS Roma, according to various reports today. Alisson is set to become the most expensive goalkeeper in history, with Liverpool surpassing the £34.7 million fee Manchester City paid for Ederson in 2017. And that's it on sports, wrapping up things on our news for this hour. We will be back later with more stories making the headlines. To join us again. My name is Felicity Eziwike. Have a good day.